Disney isn't shying away from leaning into projects that feel like surefire hits right now, and their updated release schedule reflects that. Both the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie and Freakier Friday, reuniting Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, have 2025 release dates, with Stitch coming first in May and the Freaky Friday sequel in August. Excitement follows both films, with Freakier Friday taking a look at a grown-up Anna, played by Lohan, and Lilo and Stitch featuring a blend of live-action and CGI that will feature original Stitch actor Chris Sanders. Will we shill for these movies that continue to lean on our own nostalgia?
Okay, so nobody take my Disney card, but I've never seen either of these movies in totality. But we drew straws, and this was the one I got. However, let's just always bear in mind that this follows exactly what Bob Iger said he was going to do when he came back to Disney. He was going to make sequels, and he was going to lean on nostalgia. And look what he's doing. The live action remake things, I thought he wanted to shelve those for some reason. I feel like we said that back in the day, but maybe I just cooked that up in my head at this point. I can't remember. But Lilo and Stitch is happening, so we're getting more of this blend of live action and CGI, and that's just going to happen a lot with some of these classic Disney remakes. And then Freakier Friday, I think, will really bring people out in droves because, again, don't take my Disney card, but I didn't have the Disney Channel growing up. We don't need to talk about it, but I remember people just loving this movie. And I mean, Lindsay Lohan in her heyday, as a millennial, she was our it girl for so long. And so I can really see people loving these and coming out to see them. And I think Disney's box office performance the last 2 years with their sequels is saying exactly that this is going to be the hit that Iger wants it to be.
Haley, I appreciate your candor there, because while I have seen Lilo and Stitch, I can't say with 100% confidence that I've ever seen Freaky Friday all the way through. It was one of those ones that I caught on TV. So that being said, I remember how strong the marketing was. From the trailer, Jamie Lee Curtis as Lindsay Lohan's character, this line just lives rent-free in my brain. But when she's like, "Fun sucker," you could tell that was a performance and a character that really resonated with people, and I think it resonated with both of them as well. Just as they're starting to make the tours talking about this project coming together. Not so much Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't think she really lost anything, but Lindsay Lohan, not to disparage her, but it seems the most lively and energetic she's been about a project in a really long time. So in that sense, I'm excited for it. As far as the Lilo and Stitch live action film goes, quote unquote live action, because Stitch doesn't exist, so I guess I just hope that
they should go full practical.
Yeah, he's out there somewhere.
You got to puppet this thing. Really miss an opportunity.
Yeah.
Such a different vibe if he was a lumbering slow puppet instead of
Yeah. I guess when it comes to the Disney live actions, my hope is that they lean more towards the Jungle Book from 2016 and further away from The Lion King from 2019, where it's a shot-for-shot remake. And as much as I have fond memories of that Lilo and Stitch movie, I don't remember all that much about it. It wasn't one that I play, got a lot of replay in my house. I remember the animated series on the Disney Channel, my siblings watching that a fair amount. But I do think it's important as Disney expanded and moved away from always having a white protagonist. That was one of the first ones to be inclusive with the Hawaiian culture. And I really remember the music and just the colors on display, making it seem like a magical and fantastical place. So if they can capture all of that, and the fact that, to your point, what you talked about with Aaron Pierre there, Haley, the fact that they're bringing in newcomers, unestablished names, if we're going to do these, at least make it be a platform for people to, have burgeoning careers and success.
Yeah, the sequel to Freaky Friday has been talked about for a really long time. Even after the movie initially came out, that was a discussion. When are we going to get a follow-up to this movie? When are we going to get Freaky Friday 2? And it just never came together. Lindsay Lohan's career went in a very weird direction in the years following Freaky Friday and kind of took some turns, but it's really gotten back. She's had some really interesting career rehabilitation over the last few years. She's been in very small projects. She was in like the cheesy Netflix Christmas movies and like the Hallmark movies and things like that, started appearing in some of those. And then it just feels like the right time. Like it feels like, Jamie Lee Curtis went back, did Halloween, went back and did that whole thing. And then now you've got Lindsay Lohan sort of seemingly on the right career path. And it just feels right now. It wouldn't have felt right maybe even like 8-9 years ago, just where they both were in life and in careers. It just wouldn't have worked, I think. But now you've got millennials who are getting a little bit older. They have fond memories of that movie. Maybe they're thinking about sharing it with their own children or people who are younger in their own life. And it just kind of feels right. Now, I don't know what we're going to do plot-wise, because like just switching their brains again feels kind of like it won't work or go off the right way. It's like, okay, we're just going to do it again. But again, it's if you can get the right creative team behind it, it can be fun. And I think it will. It's one of those movies. It's kind of like what we talked about with Beetlejuice. Like people have an appetite for this kind of stuff, like movies that were big for them growing up, and then they see the sequel several years later. They do come out for that if it's the right thing. I mean, Beetlejuice really. It was a showcase of that in some ways that we just saw. And as far as Lilo and Stitch goes, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I don't want to see us keep going down this path of shot for shot live action remakes. It feels, and I think the people are tired of it too. Like I think we've seen that. I mean, The Lion King made $1 billion. People came out for that, but I feel like that is where the conversation started. That is where people started saying, I just went and saw this, but it was just The Lion King. And then the conversation continued with like The Little Mermaid, and you saw some big changes to The Little Mermaid, like some new songs and some things like that. But still, there was a lot of that shot for shot, and still, again, it didn't like tank it or anything, but the conversation just continued. Like, what is the point? Like I heard a lot of people saying that type of stuff. Like, why can't I just watch the original? Like, what's the point of making a live action remake? And so I think Disney, in some ways, does have to address that at some point if we're going to keep doing this, if we're going to keep bringing in these live action remakes. We know the Rachel Zegler Snow White is in the can. We know that that's coming at some point. So we're not done with these, like you all said. And it's just, I think the people have an appetite for it, but it's got to be under the right circumstances.
Yeah. Has anybody here seen Borderlands?
No.
God, no.
Not many people at all. I've seen Borderlands, from what I understand.
If any of us had, I thought maybe Scoots had just like, because you like the games, and you had talked about maybe going, right?
Yeah, the games are okay, and if that had the word of mouth not been god awful, I would have checked it out.
Right. I was hoping somebody had seen it, so we wouldn't just be bandwagoning on the bad press. But like, no, it's totally good. But so Jamie Lee Curtis, after Everything Ever All at Once, and The Bear, both
good
like
call.
Really,
yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtisance is happening right now. And so when Borderlands was the first trailer I saw for it, little teaser, I was like, oh man, a like sci-fi video game adaptation with Jamie Lee Curtis. She's picking all great roles lately. This is going to be wonderful. And then it's just nothing but terrible press for that movie. And so like I'm in a weird place where I want to believe this is going to be great, or like a good return to form for these two to go back, but then like Borderlands is really screwing me up. Like I'm completely like, maybe like I was really thinking Jamie Lee Curtis had like hit her stride and was only going to pick, and then Borderlands is this. The narrative changed for me.
She's the problem with Borderlands, though.
For sure. It's just that
she's probably not.
She's earned a mulligan. No. We'll give her a mulligan.
She's earned a mulligan. Oh yeah, for sure.
More than one.
Yeah, definitely.
I just I had gotten to the point where I was like, anything she's in, I will go see. And after hearing all the bad things of Borderlands, okay, maybe not. So yeah, and like Lindsay Lohan was not a draw for me anymore. But like, I'm hoping this is a good turn for both of them in these roles, coming back to it.
Yeah. I know we wanted to keep this episode short, but while we have a little bit of extra time here, does anybody recall how Lindsay Lohan was involved with a lawsuit with Rockstar around GTA 5 about she thought they were using her likeness.
As one of the.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just thinking about that, I had to make the joke. We got Freakier Friday before we got GTA 6.
Something about the nostalgia of these movies. I don't know. This is like such a random thought, but I was scrolling Instagram before the show, and there's all of these accounts of people doing reenactments of movies or parodies reenactments of movies. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I think it's like stirring up some of the nostalgia for some of this stuff because people are really loving to watch that content, which I watch it and I enjoy a lot of it. And then I think, y'all are buying all these wigs and all these costumes and this is wild. These videos must be making you bank to get all this stuff to do it. But like I just scrolled by that one that was from The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan and I'm like, God, I love that movie. Like that was, baby Lindsay Lohan was like everything to me at the time. And so there's kind of this like movement outside of Hollywood that's happening on the internet, on TikTok and Instagram that is kind of driving us to want this nostalgia, in my opinion, which I find fascinating as part of the human experience.
Well, we saw that with Mean Girls. Like, speaking of Lindsay Lohan, like Mean Girls blew up on TikTok and people were like taking scenes from it and doing, and then TikTok released it in shorts, the whole movie.
Oh, really?
Like in short,
my goodness.
they put the whole movie out in like couple minute clips, and it was just one right after the other where you could essentially watch the entire movie. And you got to think, like, who's on TikTok? Well, it's a lot of younger people who weren't really around whenever that movie was big, but that movie holds up and they see it and they laugh at it and then they want to check it out. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. I mean, I think the social media drive of nostalgia is powerful, and especially on these like short form content social media, which is where we are now. There's a powerful tool there that can be used to stir up certain things that'll translate to real dollars at the box office.
Because now I'm in tinfoil hat territory. I'm like, well, why was he doing the Parent Trap thing? Was it because Disney's paying him to be like, start drumming up nostalgia for Lindsay Lohan? Like, I would totally believe that, honestly, to be like, okay, so we're going to start doing the Parent Trap, you guys. Like, getting all the influencers together.
Or just like test
start doing these scenes.
Do one of these scenes and see if it happens. See if it like pops off.
Okay, next let's do Herbie Fully Loaded.
I believe the Bears and the Jaguars, I'm trying to remember which NFL teams were playing this weekend in London, but somebody scored a touchdown, the Bears, I think, and they did the Parent Trap handshake. And I was like, you guys are like 22 years old football players. Like, you weren't even around for that movie. How do you know about the Parent Trap handshake? There's NFL games in London every
There's
year.
a big push to make the NFL
Munich
overseas.
And Mexico City.
Money, baby.
And Brazil. There was one in Brazil this year. Yeah, they're trying to go international.
Mexico, everywhere.
Interesting.